There will now be a moment for silent prayer or meditation.
Recording in progress.
Please be seated. Thank you very much, honorable members. I do think, Minister, that our prayers have been heard. We got the signal. I will now ask the Secretary to read the order.
Debate on vote number 35, Science, Technology and Innovation Appropriation Bill.
I'll now recognize the Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation.
Honorable House Chair, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation, honorable members, our Deputy Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Nomalungelo Kina, the Director General of our department, Dr. Mlungi Sicele, I don't see him, he's somewhere hiding there. Oh, we are here, Ndosi, okay. Deputy Directors General of our department, Chairpersons and CEO of our entities, our national and international partners who are with us here, or at Zigo where they are watching, our special guest, Professor Marivate, and as well as Professor George Painter. In particular, I would like to greet the learners from various schools who are really our special guests. There is no doubt that we have entered one of the most unpredictable and precarious moments in human history, a period that is marked by the erosion of the post-Cold War global order, global economic strain, rising inequality, climate change, and disruptive new technologies. It's also becoming clearer that our future as humanity depends on our willingness to use science, technology, and innovation to advance justice, equality, diplomacy, peace and not war, inequality and domination. I now wish to briefly reflect, Honorable House Chair and Honorable members, on progress achieved in the previous financial year, with specific focus on the strategic pillars of our decadal plan for science, technology, and innovation. On health innovation, with KfW, a German bank, we have approved 19 infrastructure projects to strengthen South Africa's vaccine development, testing, manufacturing, and regulation, and we are making a lot of progress on this front. The South African Health Products Regulatory Authority granted one of our local companies, BioVac, approval to begin clinical trials for its oral cholera vaccines. Noba babasaba umjovo ke manje sebezokwazi ukugwinya kuphela iphilisi bangafakwa umjovo. Sonke obaba siyawusaba umjovo. This strengthens local vaccine manufacturing and supports the African Union's goal of producing 60% of the continent's vaccine in Africa by 2040. On agricultural innovation, through South African System of Systems for Agricultural Modernization, we have allocated 19.35 million to a digital platform to improve productivity, climate resilience, and inclusion, especially for small-scale and emerging farmers. We've also allocated 14.9 million to strengthen biosurveillance, ease livestock export restrictions linked to foot and mouth disease, and support the biosecurity hub at the University of Pretoria. On mining innovation, with the Minerals Council of South Africa, we invested 58 million rand in modernization, and through the Mandela Mining Precinct, we delivered 5 software frameworks, 27 guidelines, 14 training sets, 19 technology packages, and 34 demonstrators. On boosting innovation in manufacturing, our entity, the CSIR, launched a hot isostatic press facility in Tshwane to strengthen local manufacturing, improve metal component performance, and reduce reliance on offshore processing. On space science, our country's largest science project, the Square Kilometre Array, received 5 billion rand from National Treasury to support our hosting obligations, digital infrastructure, skills, and community development. Our other mega science project, the Southern African Large Telescope, which recently marked 20 years, will undergo upgrades this year, including a new camera detector. Under our country's astrotourism strategy, astroguide training is continuing in the Northern Cape. We do this project in partnership with Minister Dilil in tourism. On building capabilities for the digital economy, we have invested 122 million to strengthen ICT infrastructure and expand capabilities in AI, modeling and simulation, blockchain, cybersecurity, networking, and the advanced Internet of Things. Our Innovation Fund has partnered with the Public Investment Corporation to co-invest in PIC Early Stage Fund of Funds. Over 3 financial years, our fund will contribute 600 million rands, whilst the Government Employees Pension Fund will contribute 1.4 billion rand. This will create a fund of more than 2 billion to support a pipeline of more than 10 fund managers and strategic initiatives. In support of our country's just energy transition, we approved 3.5 million for the CSIR subsonic wind tunnel facility to secure international accreditation, create the first such facility in Africa. We also form part of the Hydrogen Economy Interministerial Committee chaired by the Deputy President. On changing the race, gender, and class profile of our public science system, this remains our top priority. We supported 3,355 researchers against a target of 2,500, including 1,705 women, 2,208 black researchers, and 46 researchers with disabilities. We also announced 41 new research chairs for historically disadvantaged institutions, universities of technology, and newer universities, including Sol Plaatje University in the Northern Cape, which was awarded a research chair for the first time in its history. On the presidential PhD program, we are establishing 5 national doctoral training hubs focused on mining transformation, biotechnology, the water food health nexus, AI and machine learning, and the just energy transition. We are also pursuing international training partnerships backed by a 5 million rand, European Union grant, and a further 32.8 million secured by our department. I was hoping this 5 is euros rather than rands. Our indigenous knowledge systems, we are proud to indicate that UNESCO designated South Africa's African Institute on Indigenous Knowledge Systems at the University of KwaZulu-Natal as a Category 2 center. The center will advance African indigenous knowledge systems within the global knowledge base. This is another first for the African continent. The center will advance African indigenous knowledge systems within the global knowledge base. This is another first, as I have said. On science engagement, on the 4th of July, we will launch the first installment of the National Science Month, expanding on what was previously known as National Science Week. Through the National Science Month, we seek to encourage more young people to pursue science and deepen public appreciation of science in everyday life. I invite all citizens, especially the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, to join the Provincial National Science Month activities. Delivering this budget vote as we do within Africa Month, we wish to reaffirm our commitment to advancing science, technology, and innovation across our continent. We helped as South Africa to develop the African Union's Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa, STISA, 2034. And earlier this year, I attended the launch of the implementation plan of the strategy in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. Chairperson and honorable members, Africa must change the way it engages with itself and the rest of the world. One of the critical tasks in this respect is the building of what we call a sovereign research and development agenda. By this, we mean a research and development agenda that is designed, funded, and led by Africans. To make this call is not to reject international funding or partnerships, but to advocate for foreign support that is underpinned by equity and fairness and doesn't replace domestic and continental investment in our science, technology, and innovation future. The Ministerial Working Group's report, I'm very pleased, on STI in the global environment in the wake of the US withdrawing some research funds, has been submitted to Cabinet, this report, which means I'm on my way now to also table it before the Portfolio Committee, hopefully in a matter of weeks. I also wish to use this occasion to acknowledge two distinguished scientists, Professor Vukosi Marivate. He's not here. He's at possibly at Tizigo, who was recently appointed to the United Nations Independent International Scientific Panel on Artificial Intelligence. And Professor George Painter of the Emory University in the United States, whose patents helped produce antiviral treatments for HIV, hepatitis B, adenovirus, and COVID-19. Chairperson and honorable members, our department's budget allocation for the current financial year is 10.437 billion rand. Together with other income, this allocation will be used to expand the scale and impact of our work, and for this reason, over the next 3 years, through these three priorities. Through these priorities, they are not only three. Firstly, we will intensify our efforts to raise gross expenditure on research and development to 1.5% of the GDP. We are going to accelerate the transformation and expansion of ST&I, human resources, and our research workforce, strengthening the coordination and direction across our national system of innovation through, among others, the Interministerial Committee on ST&I. We are now changing from STI. ST&I, so that we are clear that what we are talking about, as well as the presidential plenary for the ST&I. Maintaining support for key science projects, such as the Square Kilometre Array, and strengthening pandemic preparedness capacity. Forging strategic innovation compacts with ST&I intensive state departments and private sector partners, upgrading critical science infrastructure and developing critical high-end skill, including through the presidential PhD program. Mobilizing more funding and resources to expand the impact of key programs such as artificial intelligence, energy security, space, vaccine manufacturing, and indigenous knowledge systems. Continuing to strengthen strategic partnership, especially across Africa and the Global South, and increase public awareness about the contribution of our public science system to human development through a stronger public engagement and communication campaign. In conclusion, Honorable House Chair, and honorable members, I wish to thank our Deputy Minister, our Director General, our Deputy Directors General, and the heads of our entities and executives for their support. I also wish to thank the staff of my department, my office, and those from our entities for their hard work. I wish to thank our portfolio committee for their critical support and guidance. Lastly, I wish to thank my wife, Pumelele, and my children, who continue to make it possible for me to save our country. Umantombela, Honorable Mjato. Chairperson and honorable members, science, technology, and innovation can build a better, safer, and more prosperous South Africa. I submit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I will now recognize Honorable Makubela.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister, Honorable members, chairpersons and executives of our entities, distinguished guests, good afternoon. Chairperson, this budget is about the kind of a nation that we are determined to build. It is about whether South Africa will remain a consumer of import technologies or emerge as a sovereign producer of innovation, industrial capacity, and scientific advancement. Across the world, nations are investing aggressively in artificial intelligence, in biotechnology, in advanced manufacturing, in digital infrastructure, in renewable energy, and in climate adaptation systems. The nations that lead in these sectors will shape the global economy of the future. And honorable members, those that fail to invest decisively will remain trapped in dependency, underdevelopment, and technological subordination. For South Africa, this moment demands urgency. It demands strategic coordination. Above all, it demands bold, decisive leadership. Science, technology, and innovation cannot remain isolated from the lived realities of our people. Science must not only be an abstract pursuit confined in laboratories and academic journals. Science must solve societal problems. Science must drive industrialization. Science must build productive capacity. Science must create sustainable and dignified work. The African National Congress has always understood that a capable developmental state must be anchored on knowledge production, innovation, industrialization, and scientific progress. We cannot continue to export raw materials while importing finished technologies at a premium cost. We cannot continue speaking about economic transformation while the majority of our people remain excluded from the knowledge economy. Chairperson, we must deliberately build an inclusive innovation ecosystem in which a young person in Bushbuck Ridge, in Giyani, in Tubatuba, in Lusigisigi, in Khayelitsha, or in the deep rural provinces of our country can participate meaningfully and competitively in the modern economy. Geography and historical disadvantage must no longer be the determinant factor of our economic destiny. South Africa's investment in research and development remains far below what is required to transform this economy. Honorable members, at approximately 0.61% of the GDP, we remain significantly below the targeted outline in the Science, Technology and Innovation Decadal Plan. This decline is deeply concerning. A nation that underinvests in science and innovation weakens its future industrial capabilities, its economic resilience, and its developmental sovereignty. Science and innovation must therefore be treated not only as discretionary expenditure, but as a strategic national investment. South Africa must break from structural patterns of low growth, unemployment, and dependence on raw commodity exports. We must build our own technological, scientific, and industrial capabilities to withstand even external shocks. Without decisive interventions, we risk remaining permanent consumers of technologies designed elsewhere, while our people remain excluded from a bright future. The work of our institutions, such as the CSIR and the Technology Innovation Agency, remains central to the developmental agenda of our country. The CSIR must continue serving as a strategic engine of industrial modernization, localization, and technological advancement. At the same time, TIA must intensify the commercialization of our South African innovation. Research output cannot remain trapped in laboratories, in conferences, and in policy documents. Innovation must be visible in our factories, in our townships, enterprises, in our farms, in our digital platforms, in our manufacturing plants, and in our local industries. The committee, therefore, believes that TIA must deepen its focus on supporting youth, innovators, and startup businesses, in expanding technology incubation, in supporting women-owned enterprises, and in strengthening public and private partnership within the scientific space. Chairperson, the committee remains concerned that research outcomes are still not translating significantly and sufficiently into broad-based economic transformation. Fragmentation persists within the national systems of innovation. Coordination between science institution, industrial policy, and economic plans remains weak. Science must be fully integrated into the South African industrial strategy and developmental agenda. Honorable members, the future economy will belong to the nations that invest boldly in scientific literature, in innovation, in capacity, and in technical skills. We therefore require massive expansion in the education field to ensure that we train new students and our learners at schools in astronomy, in robotics, in coding, and in satellite systems and in artificial intelligence. Because this is not only simply an education intervention, it is a national developmental imperative. Honorable members, transformation must stand at the very center of our scientific agenda. Transformation cannot remain a slogan forever. Compliance must not only be trapped in statistical reporting and must not be meaningful. Historically, disadvantaged communities, especially black scientists, which are women, youth, and in rural communities, they remain underrepresented across the strategic sectors. And this committee requires decisive and bold steps that will ensure that compliance in ensuring that science is transformed is adhered to. As I conclude, honorable members, the ANC remains firmly committed to building a South Africa where science drives industrialization, where South Africa creates innovation across centers, and science drives massive employment opportunities. A South Africa where young people see engineering, robotics, biotechnology, astronomy as not a distant dream, but an access to opportunities. A South Africa where scientific advancement contributes directly to economic transformation, to social upliftment, and to nation building. This budget vote is therefore not merely an expenditure allocation. It is about building a productive force where the developmental state will be at the center of transformation and innovation. It is about deepening South Africa's sovereignty in increasing the technological world. It is about ensuring that the benefits of science and innovation are shared amongst many South Africa and are not monopolized. It is in this reason that the African National Congress supports Budget Vote 35, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makubela. I will now recognize Honorable Mjadu.
Sorry. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, Directors, everyone who's here, honorable members of this House. A country does not fail when the building begins to crack. A country fails when it stops investing in people who can rebuild them. Today, we are debating the 2026-27 budget of the Department of Science, Technology, and Innovation. This budget speaks proudly about a future. It speaks about artificial intelligence, new energy, vaccine production, innovation, and scientific growth. But, Honorable Chairperson, there is a big difference between talking about progress and investing in progress. This budget sounds ambitious, but the money behind it is too small to match these promises being made. The department says South Africa wants to increase spending on research and development to 1.5% on GDP by 2030. That sounds good, Chairperson. But when we look closely at this budget, we do not see urgently needed to reach that goal. Government says science is important, but this budget does not fully support science in practical. Honorable members, science is not just another department. Science affects every part of our lives. When hospitals need better medicine, we need scientists. When we face flood, drought, or water shortage, we need scientists. When young people need jobs in technology and innovation, we need strong research institutions. Countries that lead the world today invested heavily in science and technology. Countries like China, South Korea, and Indians made a bold decision many years ago. They invested in universities, research, technology, and innovation. South Africa cannot compete globally if we continue moving too slow. Honorable Chairperson, the department talks a lot about artificial intelligence, also known as AI. But where is the major investment in computer infrastructure? Where is the strong support for young scientists and researchers? Where is the clear plan to stop skilled graduates from leaving the country? Where is the plan to create more research jobs? Without this thing, AI remains just a nice idea written in document. Honorable members, one of the biggest problems in this budget is that there is too much focus on meetings, plans, and coordination, and not enough focus on action. The budget speaks about framework, partnership, commitment, and discussion, but many laboratories still struggle with old equipment. Many postgraduate students struggle to get funding. Many researchers face uncertainty about grants and support. A country cannot develop through meetings alone, Minister. At some point, government must decide, do we want to talk about innovation or do we want to become innovative? Because those are not the same thing. Honorable Chairperson, if this budget truly focuses on the future, it would strongly support young scientists and researchers, postgraduate students, local inventions and patents, innovation centers in townships and in rural areas, water and environmental research, energy technology, advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, infrastructure, and job creation through science and technology. Instead, Chairperson, this budget feels more like maintenance budget than transformation budget. Honorable Chairperson, the department also speaks proudly about pandemic preparedness and vaccine manufacturing. But we learn an important lesson, Minister, during COVID-19 pandemic. Country without strong local scientific system struggle during the crisis. Science cannot only become important during emergencies. We cannot wait for another disaster before we invest seriously in science. Scientific progress take years of consistent support, plan, and funding. Honorable Chairperson, this budget also affects the poor. When water system fail, poor community suffers. When hospital lack innovation, poor community suffers. When graduates cannot find opportunities, poor families remain trapped in poverty. Science is not only about laboratories and in universities. Science is about improving people's lives. A weak science budget increases inequality instead of reducing it. Honorable members, the world is changing very fast. The global economy is now driven by artificial intelligence, biotechnology, advanced manufacturing, green energy, and digital technology. Countries that lead in these areas will become strong economically. Countries that fall behind will depend on technology created elsewhere. South Africa must decide whether we want to become creators of technology or permanent buyer of technologies from other countries. Right now, this budget does not position South Africa to lead. Honorable Chairperson, South Africa has talented young people, we have skilled scientists, we have innovation and potential. What we lack is bold investment and urgent action. This budget speaks beautiful about future, but numbers shows hesitation. It praises innovations with words, but funds is too careful. History will not remember how many meetings we held or how many plans we wrote. History will remember whether we built a country able to compete in the modern world. Unfortunately, this budget does not rise to that challenge. And for that reason, Honorable Chair, we reject this budget. Sengihlala phansi 4 November 2026 ngicela wonke umuntu avotele umkhonto wesizwe. Umkhonto wesizwe iwona umkhonto wesizwe ozokhulula abantu, iwona umkhonto wesizwe ongeke udayisa abantu, iwona umkhonto wesizwe ozonyusa lesikhwama sakasayensi ozobeka usayensi phambili. Ngithi kubantu bakithi emakhaya abavotela umkhonto wesizwe bengabe besayivotela iGNU.
Honorable Jadu, relevance to the budget speech.
So umkhonto wesizwe uzoqinisekisa ukuthi uzofaka
Your time
ibanga
is
kakhulu
expired.
kuscience.
Thank you very much, Honorable
Ngiyabonga
Mjadu.
kakhulu Chairperson.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I thought since you have warned us here about time when Honorable Makubela was speaking, you would also look at your time there when you were speaking. We will now recognize Honorable Ramangalo.
Greetings to the Honorable Minister, Honorable House Chair, colleagues. Honorable House Chair, since 2024, when I became a member of this committee, we've asked questions about the plans the Minister has to ensure that gross expenditure on research and development grows, especially because business investment in R&D continues to decline. This raises serious concerns about the long-term sustainability and competitiveness of South Africa's scientific capability. We have extensively argued about the department's plans to position science and innovation to be seen as a strategic economic player, as opposed to how its current existence is downplayed as a mere discretionary expenditure item. We have sat and listened to several entities raising alarming concerns about aging infrastructure and lack of maintenance budgets at national research facilities. The NRF and SANSA, for example, have identified massive infrastructure funding gaps. We continued to ponder on why, as a country, do we continue to import technologies in sectors where local public research institutions exist with the technical capabilities to actually do the work. We've even went further to probe onto the more controversial questions around, for example, the SIU investigations into the development of vaccines, to raising concerns about the partnerships between SANSA and Denel, imploring reassurance that there will be governance protocols put in place to safeguard and ensure that obvious things like compliance are adhered to, and so that we don't have to stress about transparency requirements. The reality we are faced with here is that investment into STI is fragmented and isolated, which leads to entities struggling when they have the potential to thrive and be drivers of the economy. This needs to be corrected. Today, we debate Budget 35 of the Department of STI. At a moment when the world is not standing still, the globe is racing through an era of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology, space innovation, and green industrialization. The rest of the world is doing groundbreaking work while we are still here trying to convince you that STI can play a crucial role in contributing to the growth of the South African economy. Honorable House Chair, we need to position science at the center of economic development, not as a side character, but as the main character. It obviously goes without saying that science is the engine room of sovereignty, industrialization, and competitiveness. And there needs to be a working synergy between our department and other departments like trade and industry, energy, security, healthcare, agriculture, housing, and so forth and so forth. The department's budget increases from 9.4 billion to around 10.4 billion. On paper, this sounds impressive. Of particular concern, however, is that while infrastructure-intensive programs such as the SKA receive major investment support, institutions responsible for innovation diffusion, human capital retention, and commercialization continue to face resource constraints. This creates the risk of South Africa developing high-level scientific infrastructure without sufficiently translating research outputs into jobs, industrialization, and inclusive economic growth. How do we expect to build a knowledge economy on a buzzer shop approach to investment? Fragmented investment hampers the great potential South Africa's research and innovation sectors hold. That is why this budget debate cannot merely be about allocations and line items. It must be about the national ambition. Because the truth is, science policy is economic policy. Innovation policy is industrial policy. Research investment is job creation policy. When we invest in local vaccine production, we invest in health sovereignty. When we invest in AI capability, we invest in economic competitiveness. When we invest in astronomy and space science, we invest in high-tech manufacturing, engineering and skills development. And lastly, when we invest in township innovators and rural technology ecosystems, we invest in inclusive economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ramangalo. I will now recognize Dr. Tembegwayo on the virtual platform.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The Economic Freedom Fighters reject Budget Vote 35. We reject this budget because we take science, technology, and innovation more seriously. This department speaks about artificial intelligence, sovereign space capability, and digital transformation, as if these things exist outside the material conditions of our people. You cannot speak about artificial intelligence while many township schools still do not have functioning science laboratories. You cannot speak about digital transformation while municipalities themselves cannot maintain basic ICT infrastructure. You cannot speak about the future economy while thousands of young science and engineering graduates are sitting at home unemployed. These contradictions runs throughout this budget. The report warns that South Africa's research and development expenditure continues to decline, especially from the private sector. Every government document tells us that science and innovation are central to industrialization, economic growth, and the energy transition. But when it comes to actual investment, science suddenly becomes negotiable. The department says South Africa must reach 1.5% of GDP expenditure on research and development. Yet every year, we move further away from that target. Why? Because large sections of South Africa capital have no long-term commitment to national development. Capital is on strike. Mining houses, pharmaceutical corporations, and major technology companies continue extracting profit from this country while investing very little into domestic science capability. They would rather import technologies, patents, and systems that build productive capacity here at home, and government simply accept this. 93% of this department's budget goes towards transfers and subsidies. That tells you immediately that the department itself is increasingly hollowed out while entities remain under pressure from aging infrastructure, weak commercialization, skill losses, and governance instability. The committee report itself warns about the erosion of scientific capability. That should worry all of us because once a country loses scientific capacity, rebuilding it takes decades. House Chairperson, go to a village school in the Eastern Cape or Limpopo and ask whether this innovation economy has arrived there. You will find learners expected to pass physical science without laboratories. You will find schools where coding is discussed, but there are no computers. You will find learners sharing textbooks while government speaks about future industries. Then government acts surprised when the STEM pipeline remains weak. The department celebrates research chairs and postgraduate targets, but you cannot build a scientific superpower on top of a collapsing education system. Chairperson, the EFF is not opposed to hydrogen development, the square kilometer array or space science, but we reject the prestige without developmental grounding. Government proudly speaks about green hydrogen exports to Germany, while millions of South Africa continue living with energy poverty, collapsing municipal grids, and rolling blackouts. So, who exactly is this transition for? Because if South Africa becomes nothing more than an exporter of green energy inputs to Europe, while our own people remain energy insecure, then this is not transformation. It's a greener version of the old colonial model. The committee reports also warns about technological decay seriously. South Africa speaks about sovereign capability, while many strategic technology ambitions remain dependent on foreign financing, foreign partnership, and foreign controlled systems. A sovereign nation cannot build its scientific future entirely on the assumption that global powers will always cooperate. Chairperson, government also speak about local vaccine manufacturing, while procurement systems continue favoring multinational pharmaceutical companies over domestic production. That states might buy what the state builds. The EFF therefore calls for increased domestic investment into research and development, binding procurement commitments for locally development technologies, and investment into township and rural science education. No country industrializes without scientific capacity. No country becomes sovereign while technological dependent, and no country builds a future economy while neglecting the material conditions of its own people. For these reasons, the EFF rejects budget vote 35. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tembekwayo. I'll now recognize Honorable Zondo from the virtual platform.
Honourable Chairperson, greetings to you, greetings to the Minister, Deputy Minister, honourable members. The IFP welcomes budget vote 35 in recognition that South Africa cannot thrive through or dismantle the constraint of inequality without turning the science into a practical tool of development. In the era of the fourth industrial revolution, this department became increasingly important to our country's sovereignty, development, and long-term economic future. Given our high youth unemployment rate, shortcomings in service delivery, and slow industrial growth, science, technology, and innovation must be a vessel for us to do more than merely produce reports and research papers. It must help us build solutions that create jobs, strengthen public service, improve competitiveness, and expand productive capacity of the economy. This is why the IFP welcomed the department alignment within the National Development Plan and the Medium-Term Development Plan. These frameworks correctly placed dynamic science and innovation ecosystem at the very heart of our national agenda for inclusive growth and job creation. However, for this ecosystem to truly serve our people, it must directed toward the front line of our daily struggle. We specifically welcome the prioritization of research in energy, health, and agriculture. These are critical areas where innovation moves beyond research institutions to make a material difference by lowering the cost of energy, securing our food supply, and strengthening the public health of our nation. At a time where AI is evolving at an exponential rate, we must optimize this digital foundation to ensure that fourth industrial revolution is translated into local jobs and tangible economic sovereignty for every South African. As such, we must confront the reality that without decisive leap in the AI economy, South Africa risks a permanent technology dependence on foreign platforms to utilize our national data for their own strategic gain. The IFP therefore calls for a strategy that will treat our data as a sovereign asset to be nurtured. We do not need a plan that simply adopts foreign tools. We need an immediate investment in local digital sector and cybersecurity that echoes our fourth industrial revolution within our borders. Lastly, we note the concern, the financial pressure faced by the institution within the system. Human Sciences Research Council faces pressure to retain senior researchers, maintain infrastructure, secure external income. Furthermore, the National Advisors Council on innovation remains limited by financial and human resource constraints. These programs speak to whether South Africa will be able to build the scientific and institutional capacity needed for a long-term growth, inclusive industrialization and meaningful social progress. We encourage that these financial deficits, which are induced by the geopolitical funding crisis, be compensated with increased public service partnership. Kulokho kungenhle sengikushilo, i-IFP support this budget vote 35. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Zondo. I will now recognize Honorable Hendricks.
Thanks, Honorable Chair, Minister, DM, Chairperson of the portfolio, honorable members, and all departments present. I rise today on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance to debate Vote 35, Science, Technology and Innovation, a vote that speaks directly to the future of our economy, our competitiveness and our ability to solve challenges facing South Africans. Science and innovation are the engines of progress, yet our system continues to neglect the very researchers, innovators and entrepreneurs who could drive transformation. Research funding remains inadequate. Brilliant scientists and innovators are left scrambling for resources, while laboratories and universities struggle to keep up with the pace with global standards. Vote 35 must prioritize investment in research and development, because without it, South Africans will remain a consumer of technology rather than a producer. There is a lack of support for previously disadvantaged innovators. Much like in agriculture, the system often feels set up for them to fail. Emerging innovators from rural and township communities face barriers to funding, mentorship and market access. Vote 35 must ensure, Minister, inclusivity, so that innovation is not the privilege of a few, but opportunity for all. We must strengthen technology transfer. Too many research breakthroughs remain trapped in academic journals instead of being commercialized to create jobs and industries. Vote 35 must bridge the gap between research and the marketplace, ensuring that innovation translates into economic growth. Honorable members, science, technology, and innovation is not a luxury. It is a necessity. A nation that fails to innovate is a nation that falls behind. Vote 35 must deliver funding, inclusivity, commercialization to ensure that South Africans is not left behind, Minister, in the global knowledge economy. Let us commit to science and innovation systems that empowers our people and transform our economy and secure our future. We support, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Hendricks. Hey, the way you looked at me, I thought you were saying something else. I will now recognize Honorable Bishop.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable colleagues. I must say, I wouldn't have thought while listening today, but this is a very exciting topic. Science is about knowing stuff. Technology is about doing stuff with tools, and innovation is about doing new stuff with tools, with new tools, without tools, or with no tools. So these three things are actually very important in the economy, because the economy is the natural endowment paired with what humans add to it. And this is what this is all about. But this department doesn't get enough money. And that's actually the summary of what everybody has said. Now, just to put it into perspective, the department gets about 10 billion rand out of a total national expenditure of just around 2 trillion, and that is very little. In fact, the entities within the department generate some 3.1 billion rand of their own. The NIF 232, the HSRC more than half of its total expenditure, 326 million. The CSIR generates about 76% of its total expenditure with 2.6 billion. The TIA, which is a little bit of a problem child within the department and which maybe should get the deadline somewhere, generates some 54 million. And SANSA generates some 221 million rand, which is a quarter of the expenditure, which is a very good number because they don't do cheap stuff. Now, the question, now just let's put it in more perspective. The skills development levy, which takes 1% of all working South African salary, that collects about 27 billion rand. That means nearly 3 times what this department gets. 22 of those billion go to the SETAs, which waste it, most of it. And then another 5 to the National Skills Fund, which waste a little less, but also a lot. And with that money, this department could have performed miracles. Not real, because it's a science department, unfortunately. Yet, what should we do? There's no room for new taxes. There's nothing else that we can tax and still have the economy growing. We need to use money better. Now, one place to start is that the National Research Foundation, which has to fund, amongst many other tasks that they have to fund postgraduate students. Now, that should easily fit into the present budget of higher education, where 54 million rand is going, billion rand, of course, is going to NSFAS, where they also don't work with the money in a very neat way. And they only train people for a 3-year degree, which means they are ready for their professional qualification, but not yet for the working place. And then also, increased or enhanced tax collection should collect more money, which could be put in a special fund exactly for the use by this department in science and innovation. Now, if there was a little bit more time, one could go on, but there's not, so I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Boshoff. I will now recognize Honorable Letlape.
Thank you, House Chair, to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the DG, all protocols observed. You know, I can't help but just tell a small story that as a young boy, we had no science laboratories. So whatever the teacher was talking about, you had to imagine. Sadly, it hasn't changed much for the majority of our citizens. When we have a system that produces children that can't read for meaning, what can we do? Because innovation comes from those very children that are sitting in desperate environments, but there's no enabling structure for them to come through. When you see some of the people that were innovators, they came from poor backgrounds. You don't find many innovators that come from cushy backgrounds. But our children that are in that position are given no chance to come through. One of the challenges that we have in South Africa is we've got too much government. So there's never enough money where it is needed. We have this habit where instead of keeping something as a department, we make it a ministry. We then wonder why there is no money to do the things that need to be done. We talk about fragmentation and integration. The one thing that I've learned in Parliament is that most things don't happen in this country because they go to die in interministerial committees. Because when you have too many ministries, too many bosses, you can't really get things done. One of the challenges that we have is that, competency was a requirement for me to practice as a doctor. But competency is not a requirement for me to be a member of Parliament. And until that changes, we can't guide the nation properly. So I plead with you, Honorable Minister, that the one thing that you can do is to leave this parliament with a template of what is the science of an efficient government. So that we have units that are based on evidence gathered from the best performing governments that are mean. When you have a government that is bigger than your industries, you're in trouble. Unless we can ensure that industries become the biggest employers and not government, we're going nowhere slowly. So unless we get to a position where we stop talking about transfers, insufficient money, and we do not talk about the wastage in too much government that can govern, we are not going to succeed as a people. So I urge you, Minister, if we can't have labs in the townships, if we can't have labs in all communities, if children can't learn about science in grade R, we are not going anywhere. So we cannot support a budget that doesn't change the reality that we have. We've got to change direction, we've got to change paradigm, and this department should be able to lead in that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I will now recognize the Honorable Deputy Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Let me take this opportunity to greet our Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Makubele, and all the members of the Portfolio Committee. Greetings to you, Minister, to the DG, and all the DDGs, and also greet all the chairpersons of the CEO and the CEOs of our entities that are here, EXCO and officials of our department. Greet all our special guests that we are having today, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Chair, it is indeed our humble honor to table this budget of about 10.4 billion that we are here to present today with the Minister. We continue to work hand in gloves as the political leadership to ensure that the department pivots the system to address the grand challenges that the decadal plan has identified. We argue that STI cannot afford to be beneficial only to the elite and leave the rest of the society, especially township and rural people, including women, including people living with disability, youth, underserved. The department is beginning to be proactive and deliberate in going out and engage society, education, and industries. And this includes our proactive approach at the sub-national level of government to locate STI at the center of all the important endeavors that we do. This is the world we find ourselves living in, where science, technology, and continuous innovation are the locus of social development. And so this department is at the cockpit of catalyzing STI-driven development. Chairperson, as we grab the bull by its horns in an attempt to seek the implementation of the decadal plan, we know that it's not the walk in the park. The huge challenges facing the national system of innovation is a systemic underfunding, as it has been alluded to. And looking at that, South Africa still remains at the bottom of all the OECD countries when it comes to the funding of RDI, and we are trying, we are making steps, and we are always taking even the advice and the views from the Portfolio Committee and our entities as we work towards this. With this grim picture of system underfunding, we have chosen to steam ahead and make sure and make use of the minimum of our that is at our disposal, than posing until the system is well funded. I'm reminded, Honorable Chairperson, of Gillian Flynn, an American author who said, quote, pivoting requires immersion, not just observation. She advised us that the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge in it, move with it, and join the dance, close quote. As we join the dance as the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, we are taking STI to subnational level. When we talk of subnational level, that includes education and society in order to give concrete expression of the decadal plan. We have also established structured way of working directly with all district municipalities and metros in our country within the context of the district development model. We are mapping out these programs in line with the developmental needs of the district by infusing science, technology, and innovation in order to make sure that the municipalities do function accordingly, because they are at the coal face of the service delivery of our country, and science is playing a critical role when it comes to it. And also when it comes to the relationship that we are building with industry, as we have all alluded to the fact that we are underfunded when it comes to the investment that they do, when it comes to R&D. We appreciate the fact that without industry investment in innovation, we will not succeed as a country in advancing in tandem with the rest of the world. Accordingly, we are engaging closely with business leadership in this regard to invest in our country's STI, and there's so many reports that we are still going to be bringing even to Parliament, is to say, what are we doing in making sure that private sector is being engaged. Also, when coming to the issue of building a very healthy pipeline when it comes to taking up the STEM subjects, working with the Department of Basic Education, we are hosting districts and second level school clusters. We're having public engagements when it comes to science, tech, and innovation, where we're taking out the issue of science literacy, because without the community understanding the essence and the importance of science, even if we can deal with their learners at school, we must make sure that even the community themselves, they do understand what is needed of them. So it's one other matter that we are taking care of, is to say, working together with the Department of Education, what is it that we can do to make sure that we change the face of STEM profession in South Africa, looking at our profile and the profession of our pipeline is overwhelmingly white. We know there are a lot of males, and it's very urban. So we are saying, let's take everyone, let's not leave anyone behind. And those are the programs that we are engaging on. I also like to touch a little bit on the indigenous knowledge system, as the minister have touched on. I'm very proud to say today we have worked with the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Northwest University, University of Venda, to pilot the RPL, that is the recognition of prior learning qualification for traditional health practitioners. Our highlight when it comes to IKS work is that the total of about 96 students graduated with their Bachelors of Indigenous Knowledge System from the University of Northwest. This program is being funded by the department and is growing exponentially over the years, and we are really grateful out of that. We really recognize and we know that when it comes to the grassroots innovators, we are going all out. We're engaging the communities when it comes to this regard. And working together with TIA, we have established about 13 living labs, 9 centers for innovation and entrepreneurship, and M labs in 4 provinces. These labs are centers that provide a physical space and innovation infrastructure for innovators, and to ideate and progress their prototype solutions to market through the offering of the structured innovation support training and combination of the technical and innovation skills. We know that we are not where we want to be, but we are proud to say the work has started, and we still need to scale up and see to it that we leave no one behind. Chairperson, this budget vote demonstrates our shift from the old way of thinking, where more attention was paid to sciences and research, whilst these areas will always remain important. As DSTI, we are making strategic focus on innovation and technologies in strengthening the system on innovation. We are making headways in this mandate and we will leave no one behind. We truly understand that when it comes to grassroots innovators, they contribute and they are the vital role players when it comes to the innovation system of our country and the economic growth, and also making sure that when it comes to the sovereignty of our country, they really contribute quite a lot. Honorable Chair, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank Minister Nzimande, for whom we are working very well together with the department led by our DG and all the DDGs and the senior management of our department. But also the commitment that we find from our entities in making sure that we are all together in changing the face of our science sector in our country and make sure that everyone, and we are deliberate in making that. So to the whole STI family, I really want to thank you. But also, let me thank the Portfolio Committee for their support, their oversight role. They are making sure that we are accountable at all the time and transparent at all the time. But really, we really appreciate the views and the comments and the ideas they always bring to us, more especially as they continuously support us in making sure that more and more funds we get for this department, looking at the challenges that we are faced with. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. I will now recognize a member from the ACDP, if there is one on the virtual platform. Any member from UDM? Any member from RISE? BOSA? ATM? Al-Jama? NCC? PAC? UAT? Good. I will now recognize the Honorable Mazon.
Minister, that was what they call a small but enthusiastic crowd. Minister, Deputy Minister, Chairperson, friends on my committee, department who are also friends, I'm happy to say, Mr. Majado especially. In an increasingly unstable and competitive world, science and technology and innovation are no longer just on the peripheral policy discussions, they form the very nucleus. They are matters of sovereignty, competitiveness, and national resilience. And this report correctly recognizes that science, technology, and innovation sit at the center of economic growth, industrialization, energy transition, and state capability. And I'm happy to say that everyone who has spoken here today has recognized this. The report, however, repeatedly warns of declining research development expenditure, aging infrastructure, loss of specialist skills, and a weak coordination across the national system of innovation. And nowhere are these pressures more visible than at the CSIR and at the South African Space Agency. The CSIR remains one of South Africa's most important strategic assets, and I cannot highlight that enough. It supports advanced manufacturing, energy innovation, mining technology, cybersecurity, and industrial development. It is one of the few institutions capable of translating scientific capability into practical economic outcomes. They are astoundingly fantastic. And yet, this report makes it clear that the CSIR faces mounting pressure from aging infrastructure and increasing dependence on more contract income. The report warns that the CSIR may struggle to maintain existing capabilities over the medium-term expenditure framework. Madam House Chairperson, this should alarm everyone, every member in this House, because one strategic scientific capability lost is one extraordinarily difficult to rebuild. Scientists leave, engineers immigrate, infrastructure decays, and eventually a country becomes permanently dependent on importing technologies it should have developed itself. The CSIR should not be forced into survival mode while simultaneously being expected to thrive, industrialization, and innovation. A capable state requires capable scientific institutions. House Chairperson, the same applies to SANSA. The South African Space Agency is tasked with helping the South African transition from an emerging space nation into an intermediate space nation. This is strategically very important because space capability today underpins weather forecasting, agriculture, disaster management, telecommunications, navigation systems, and national security. Despite funding constraints, SANSA has performed impressively. It hosts Africa's only 24-hour operational space weather center. It generates foreign contract revenue. It continues developing the EOSAT program. But again, warning signs are there. There is a projected funding gap of more than 2 billion rand in SANSA's strategic program, bearing in mind the department has 10.4 billion rand in total. Critical infrastructure requires maintenance, and high-end technical skills remain difficult to retain. The report also correctly raises concerns regarding the growing uneasiness between SANSA and Denel. Now, let's be clear, South Africa absolutely requires technological capability, but Minister, let me be the broken record, and hopefully someone will eventually listen. Parliament is entirely justified in demanding transparency and accountability regarding this partnership, because Denel's governance history raises understandable concerns. And when civilian space programs and defense-linked infrastructure begin overlapping, transparency becomes a non-negotiable. The committee was therefore correct to demand written clarity on the EOSAT-1 partnership and the HowTech arrangements. And Madam House Chairperson, let me guarantee everyone in this room that we will get clarity about where Denel and SANSA stand. And we will get clarity as to why letters are being written between the Ministry and SANSA about these issues. Another issue that runs through this department is fragmentation. Too many entities operating in silos, too much duplication, too many institutions competing for shrinking resources. But all the time we're told that there is coordination. I'm not seeing it. South Africa no longer has the fiscal space to tolerate inefficiency. We cannot have multiple entities separately attempting commercialization, innovation, financing, and overlapping on strategic work. A constrained state requires strategic focus, not institutional sprawl. What South Africa needs is a coherent, properly coordinated innovation ecosystem with clear mandates, reduced duplication, and measurable outcomes. Most importantly, the department must fundamentally rethink how it views and funds science innovation expenditure, because investment in science is not consumption spending, it is nation-building spending. Countries that underinvest in science eventually lose technological sovereignty. South Africa must cut through the clutter with focused spending. House Chair, I say this with sincere and complete sincerity. We wish this department and its entities nothing but great success moving forward. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mazon. I will now recognize Honorable Nkosi.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, my fellow honorable members. I would like Honorable House Chairperson to first congratulate Mzwakhe, leftist Nkosi, a PhD graduate from Mpumalanga, University of Mpumalanga, in my district constituency. And Honorable Minister, I would like to also to thank or appreciate National Research Fund that is continually assisting young people in the country, even going down to the rural university like the University of Mpumalanga and finding Mzwakhe leftist Nkosi. Today, he's a PhD graduate. Thank you. Today, as we gather here to deliberate on the budget vote 35 for the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation for the fiscal year 2026-27, as we do so, we recognize that this is a critical juncture to reposition the national system of innovation as a powerhouse for inclusive growth, sustainable job creation, and the eradication of the triple scourge that continues to afflict our nation, which is poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Our commitment to transformation with the key scientific institutions such as Academy of Science of South Africa and the South African Council of Natural Scientific Profession reflects the steadfast dedication to advancing the state agenda for social justice and economic emancipation, aligning with the broader mandate of a developmental, ethical state. Honorable members, at the heart of this endeavor lies a firm recognition that transformation must transcend symbolic representation or mere numerical redress. While we acknowledge progress made, such as ASAF achieving 35% black and 33% women membership, true transformation demands a profound and deliberate paradigm shift. Honorable Chair, it is imperative that entrenched conservatism within these institutions be vigorously addressed. Traditional academic mindsets, which have historically resisted the state's vision for inclusivity and social equity, must be reshaped through targeted, aggressive strategies. Transformation in this context is not merely progressive optics. It is the moral and practical realignment of science to serve the lived realities of millions of South Africans currently marginalized by the systematic barriers. From an ANC policy standpoint, this transformative agenda requires comprehensive legal overhaul. We call for a thorough review and alignment of the mandates of ASAF and SACNESP, ensuring that their statutory roles unequivocally support South Africa's national developmental priorities. This forthcoming Natural Scientific Profession Bill must not only regulate the scientific professions, but must actively become a catalyst for transformation to empower these bodies to be engines for social and economic change rather than mere custodians of conservative academic traditions. Honorable House Chair, SACNESP's commitment to aligning registration and lifelong learning initiatives with priority 3 of the medium-term development plan, building an ethical and developmental state, is in line with our policy to embedded inclusivity in all levels. ASAF's strategic planning for 2025-2026 to 2029-2030 must extend this commitment, reflecting demographic realities in every council for decision and advisory report, thus holding these institutions accountable to our nation's transformation goals. Moreover, it is non-negotiable that leadership and advisory roles within these entities visibly prioritize women, youth, and persons living with disabilities, which are demographics that our democracy pledges to uplift. The ANC applauds innovative initiatives such as SACNESP's SHE-STEM program and ASAF's Frontiers Planet Prize for young scientists. Nonetheless, we insist that these initiatives must be scaled with agency, ensuring inclusivity moves beyond tokenism. Our youth should not remain passive recipients, but must be actively involved in shaping science and technology policy at the highest excellence. This approach aligns with our broader youth empowerment strategy, which insists on fostering agency, innovation, and responsibility among the next generation. Academic excellence and social relevance are complementary, not conflicting objectives. Reinforcing this duality remains a cornerstone of ANC policy aspirations. Upholding high academic standards is imperative. However, these standards must explicitly be applied through the lens of addressing South Africa's critical socio-economic challenges. Foremost among them is unemployment and inequality. We must therefore demand that ASAF and SACNESP incorporate clear, measurable transformation metrics directly linked to socio-economic impact. These metrics must be integrated into every annual performance plan, ensuring transparency, accountability, and public scrutiny in aligning academic output with national needs. Honorable House Chairperson, central to this transformative vision is the fostering of robust, inclusive partnership. The ANC envisions a national system of innovation that transcends institutional silos by deepening collaborations among government, industry, and civil society. Alliances such as the SACNES's partnership with the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and the City of Cape Town illustrates that potential for science to enhance service delivery and create employment opportunities. We stress that adequate strategic funding is vital for partnerships to strive. These investments aligns with the allocated budget through not sufficient given a proposed plan. Finally, to the opposition parties who sit here today and decry the politicization of science, your silence on the historical exclusion of black and women scientists is deafening. To suggest that the state should not have an agenda for its science councils is to suggest that we should remain a country of two worlds. The ANC will not allow our scientific resources to be used to maintain the status quo of inequality. We are not interfering, we are intervening to ensure that allocated resources serve many, not the few. Honorable House Chairperson, in conclusion, ASAF and SACNES must be the vanguards of a new era where the integrity in science is measured not only by scholarly achievements, but by their tangible contribution to job creation, social equity, and national development. The ANC proudly supports this project and calls on all stakeholders to commit this transformative vision for our nation. Together, we will ensure that science works for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nkosi. Honorable Mjadu, today, yeah, I see you have been appointed to assist me. I will now recognize the Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation to close off the budget vote.
Imlo Mjadu. Ngizalwa iza udlameni mina izizwe uJames Mjadu uMlashe. Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Let me start first of all by thanking all those who supported this budget vote, which means at least we have got quite a significant numbers and members of this portfolio committee who know where we are going and where we are supposed to go. I want to thank you, Chair, for very important points you made. Amongst those, you pointing at the right thing, that there isn't enough commercialization. We share that with you. That is why, amongst other things, we are seeking to strengthen TIA, and we are also working closely looking at what NIPMO is doing, the National Intellectual Property Management Office in the department, as well as strengthening our working relationship with our entities. Baba Mjadu, ngiyavumelana nawe ukuthi asingakhulumi nje asenze. Kodwa ngibale into eziningi la esizenzayo. Uma ubheka nje speech sami nesika deputy minister sigcwele iaction. Manje angazi noma bewungalalele noma uzitshela ukuthi noma singathini uzofunda lento oyibhalela phansi. Kuningi ngikushilo la ngifuna ukukuphinda ngoba bese ngisithathile isikhathi sa. Let me say that we agree with the weaknesses. I mean, the main weakness that we are pointing out is that our funding is not enough. We agree there. But the challenge to all those who say that, including good Dr. Tenjewai, let's not be perpetual lamenters. We are very keen as the ministry and the department to hear proposals like other members were doing. And not just to be lamenting all the time. In fact, Honorable Tenjewai, I can write your speeches without even blinking because I know exactly what you are going to say. These issues that you are raising are big, they are important, the issue of science infrastructure in schools, laboratories and all that. That's why, amongst other things, we are working closely with the Department of Basic Education to say together, how do we tackle these challenges? Because it is in our interest that the Department of Basic Education must be strong, must produce more science students because then we've got students in the pipeline. But lento yokukhala ungaqhamuki nokuthi kuthiwa nayi mina engiphathe kahle. Ngithe ngiyabonga ke kubo bonke labo abasupportele le budget yethu. Honorable Bosov, we welcome the fact that we are thinking also at least. So we'd like to hear more of your views. With 4 minutes, perhaps you are unable to. I would even be willing that we meet. Let's hear what you're thinking about, how much we can raise more money, and also share what we are actually doing on our side. Honorable Matsoni, I think that I see this issue of Denel and Sansa worries you to no end. Why don't we agree that let's have a time and sit down? Let me hear properly. Because I don't want to think I'm hearing you when in fact I'm not. Maybe even discuss it, Chair, in the Portfolio Committee, that we come and do a presentation, TG, on that, so that we must just get around these issues. But the issue of duplication is also our concern. That's why what we've been doing now, we are meeting individually with our entities because we want to understand in depth what are they doing, where are the overlaps, how do we deal with this. Also, by the way, the DG is leading a very important program of writing, signing a shareholder agreement between the department and
Honorable
the
Minister,
entities.
can you please hold for a second? Members that are invited to come and listen to the budget vote, the rules of the House that we are not allowed to use our phones and record or take videos. So please, can we abide by the rules? Because you are not members of Parliament, but you have been invited to come and listen to the budget vote. And what you are doing now, it's incorrect. Can we please refrain from doing that? Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Yeah, I was saying the DG has been working on shareholder agreements so that we are able to tightly hold our entities to account. I think that's making good progress. Now, to end, I would like to say congratulations to your PhD graduate, Mpazim. We need PhD graduates in buckets, in thousands, if not millions, as a country. Thank you very much for everyone who participated. Siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, we have come to the conclusion of the debate and the business of the mini plenary session. And also I would like to also thank you for attending the budget vote and being so much of a nice members of parliament today. The mini plenary will now rise and the assistance of Honorable Mjadu.